Hey everybody, today I am super excited to give you your first look at the new DJI MAVIC 4 Pro, and in this video we will be looking at everything that's new compared to the previous MAVIC 3 Pro, including the new cameras and gimbal system, along with comparison footage, design changes, new features, the all-new DJI RC Pro 2, and more. And hopefully this will help you decide if it's worth upgrading or if you're considering buying the MAVIC 4 Pro to help you work out if this drone is for you. So I actually spent some time over the past few weeks traveling all across Ireland with this drone to not only capture some beautiful footage with it, but also get real-world experience so that I can tell you what's great about it and some of the niggles. Now, if you would like to find out more about this drone or pick it up at any stage, I've put a link in the description down below where you can do just that. Alright, let's start with the design improvements. So straight away, you can see the new MAVIC 4 Pro is larger, even when folded, and it's also around 100 grams heavier. This is a large, heavy drone, so make sure you're aware of the implications of that regarding the regulations in your country. However, it does remain a C2 class drone, just like the MAVIC 3 Pro. Now, before we remove the gimbal guard, I want to point out that thankfully this doesn't strap around the back anymore, allowing you access to the battery and microSD card even when it's fitted. Much better. However, in terms of the microSD card, this drone has internal storage, so in some cases you might not even need one inserted. And this is actually a good time to point out there's 3 different flavors of the MAVIC 4 Pro available. So firstly, there's the standard MAVIC 4 Pro, which comes with 64 gigabytes of internal storage. This is up from only 8 gigabytes on the older standard model, and this also comes with the DJI RC2 controller. There's also a Fly More combo, which includes 2 extra batteries, charging hub, and a shoulder bag, or the top combo I have here called the Creator combo, and this has a few upgrades. Firstly, the drone itself in the Creator combo is slightly different. This version gets bumped up to 512 gigabytes of internal storage, which is a huge increase, although somewhat lower than the 1 terabit of storage on the equivalent older MAVIC 3 Pro Cine Edition. With that being said, when I spent a few days traveling around Ireland a few weeks back, I never even managed to fill the internal storage, and I captured a lot, so there's plenty of space. The Creator combo also has access to the all-eye compression codec, a faster charging hub, and the new DJI RC Pro 2 controller, which are all super exciting, and we'll talk about them in more detail shortly. But let's first get back to removing the gimbal guard and unfolding the drone, and this is when the design improvements become most obvious. Also worth mentioning that the MAVIC 4 Pro also now auto powers on if a battery is inserted when unfolding the arms for a faster setup time. So aside from the fact it's noticeably larger unfolded than the previous model, the most striking thing to me when I first unboxed it was the size of the new propellers. They are absolutely massive, and you might think this means that the drone will be very loud in the air, but actually one of the first things I absolutely love about it is that it's much quieter than the MAVIC 3 Pro. The design is also much more aerodynamic, with its spherical gimbal and streamlined body, and DJI are claiming up to a 19% reduction in drag. And this, combined with the larger propellers and a more efficient propulsion system, means I've noticed the drone is noticeably more agile when flying it around in the air. The design changes also help to increase the top speed to 25 meters per second if there's no or little wind, or an even faster 27 meters per second if it's assisted by a tailwind. And this is up from a slower maximum of 21 meters per second on the MAVIC 3 Pro. Trust me, in sport mode, this thing rips through the air. You can cover a lot of ground fast. And in terms of wind resistance, it's equally fantastic, capable of handling wind speeds up to 12 meters per second. Now, the design also features wing-like arms, and the back arms, you might have already noticed, are also lifted and tilted forward, and this means that they actually provide lift during flight to help increase battery life. So, speaking of battery life, firstly, the batteries are larger in terms of watt hours and physical size. So because of that, it's useful to know they aren't interchangeable between the old and new model. But for flight time, this does get a nice bump up to 51 minutes of rated flight time. Although in my testing, I found I was getting around 38 to 40 minutes maximum per battery, which is in line with what to expect. Normally, you should expect around 75% of the max rated flight time. But this is still a solid improvement over the Mavic 3 Pro's real-world flight time of around 30 to 32 minutes in my experience in testing. Now, when it comes to charging the batteries, there's actually two different chargers available. Firstly, there's a 100-watt charging hub, similar to what came with the older Mavic 3 Pro, or if you get the Creator Combo, this brand new 240-watt charging hub. And this, I have found, makes a huge difference, as this hub features a mini SDC port, and once connected to a power source, this hub can charge all three batteries simultaneously. This means that it only takes 90 minutes to fully charge all three batteries, cutting the charging time by more than half, as the Mavic 3 Pro's 100-watt charger takes around 210 minutes to charge all three batteries. I also like this new design. The old one only secured the batteries from their base. This new design locks them into place, which is much better. Now, arguably the most unique and striking feature of this drone is its new spherical gimbal, and importantly the cameras it houses within. So let's first focus on them cameras, and then we will talk about what makes this gimbal unique. So just like the Mavic 3 Pro, we have access to three different cameras, with the first main wide-angle camera getting some pretty substantial upgrades. And before we dive into them, if you're taking a look at this example footage, I think you'll agree with me, it looks absolutely beautiful. So while the main sensor remains the same at 4/3, it is an upgraded sensor, firstly supporting an increased max resolution of 6K 60fps HDR video, up from a max of 5.1K at 50fps on the Mavic 3 Pro, and therefore capturing more detail, which you can clearly see in this comparison if we push into the image a little bit. Now, this new wide-angle camera also has a redesigned large aperture lens, with the aperture being controllable from f11 all the way up to f2, and being able to adjust that aperture is such an advantage for making micro adjustments in the air to dial in that exposure. And being able to open the aperture all the way up to f2 is again an increase from the f2.8 limit on the Mavic 3 Pro. This, combined with the new processing hardware, which also adds dual native ISO fusion. Sounds complicated, but essentially what it does is it simultaneously captures two videos, one at ISO 100 and one at ISO 400, and then automatically blends them together. And all this adds up to boost the dynamic range to around 16 stops, which is, it's crazy. This far exceeds the Mavic 3 Pro's 12.8 stops of dynamic range. Just looking at these side-by-side examples, you can clearly see the difference this higher dynamic range makes, especially in the more challenging lighting conditions such as sunrises or sunsets. This new larger aperture, which lets in more light, also means you can run lower ISO settings in those low light situations or nighttime situations, and this also results in cleaner footage with less noise. Now, in terms of photos, with the main wide-angle camera, you can capture incredibly detailed and high-resolution 100 megapixel JPEG and RAW images, which is another massive step up from the Mavic 3 Pro, as it only captured 20 megapixel images. These look absolutely incredible. Although, if anything, I find them to be a little too sharp straight from the drone, but this is easily fixable in a photo editor afterwards. Also, when it comes to photos, we have all the panoramic modes you would expect, including the latest free panorama mode, which lets you define a custom size and shape for your panorama in the air, and then the drone will automatically take all the multiple photos required for that larger image. Worth noting that the field of view on the new Mavic 4 Pro's main camera is slightly narrower, with a 28mm equivalent compared to the Mavic 3 Pro's 24mm equivalent lens, and that is why the tele lenses now have changed on the interface to a 2.5x and 6x compared to a 3x and 7x on the Mavic 3 Pro. The zoom level is exactly the same, it's just a different multiple of that main camera field of view. So, next up, let's take a look at that 2.5x medium tele camera, and this appears to have the same 1/1.3 inch sensor with a fixed aperture of f2.8 at a 70mm equivalent focal length as the older model and Air 3S. However, thanks to that upgraded image processing hardware we mentioned, when doing side-by-side comparisons, you can see that the Mavic 4 Pro footage does contain much less noise even in daylight, and it also has a tiny bit more detail compared to the Mavic 3 Pro. So the footage overall does look quite a bit cleaner, and again to my eye looks fantastic. The medium tele camera also retains the ability to record 48 megapixel images, and these look equally fantastic. Another big upgrade, however, is to the third tele camera, which offers the equivalent of a 6x zoom. Now, I have to admit, with the Mavic 3 Pro, while the footage from its third tele camera wasn't bad, when you switched to it, the difference in downgrade in quality compared to the other two cameras was quite noticeable. It didn't produce the most detailed image, and so because of that, I never really found myself using it, which is a shame. However, with this new model, this discrepancy is fixed, and we get a completely new upgraded 1/1.5 inch sensor, and this is up from the half-inch sensor available on the Mavic 3 Pro. And in my side-by-side testing, I found that not only does this massively improve the image quality, with visibly less noise when zoomed in, and an overall much sharper image, but it brings it much closer to the other main wide-angle and 2.5x cameras, reducing that previous quality discrepancy between the three and making it much more usable. This new tele camera also has a higher dynamic range of 13 stops compared to the older model's 11 stops, and again, in a side-by-side comparison, you can see when shooting in high contrast scenes such as sunrise or sunset or directly facing the sun, you get much more detail compared to the previous model. It also has a larger fixed aperture, up from f3.4 to f2.8, and when it comes to taking photos, it also gets a big bump up from only 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels, and again, these look absolutely beautiful. Now, both the two tele cameras support up to 4K 60fps HDR video recording for normal speed videos, but unlike the Mavic 3 Pro, you can now also shoot slow motion footage with not only the main wide angle camera, but also the two tele cameras, with the main wide angle and 2.5x medium tele camera allowing up to 4K 120fps slow motion shots, and the third 6x tele camera supporting up to 4K 100fps. All three cameras also support 10-bit normal, D-Log, D-Log-M and HLG color modes, which is also an upgrade, as before D-Log was only available with the main wide-angle camera. Now, with the previous Mavic 3 Pro, there was a Cine edition, which had access to Apple ProRes, and it's a similar story with the Mavic 4, with this Creator version having an additional codec available. But this has been changed to All-I. So this is a compression format similar to ProRes that uses less compression, and therefore can have a slightly better image quality, especially when capturing fast motion compared to the standard H.265 format. Due to the fact it's less compressed, it will also be easier to scrub through and render when editing. The drawback, however, is the file sizes. Well, they're absolutely huge. I mean, huge. 1 minute of H.265 footage, for example, takes up around 800 megabytes of space. But the same 1 minute of All-I footage takes a whopping 5.5 gigabytes of space. So if you do use this mode, bring spare memory cards. Now, all these cameras are housed within easily the most striking feature of the Mavic 4 Pro, and that is the new spherical gimbal. And when you turn it on for the first time, be sure to check out the self-calibration movement. It's pretty crazy. Now, this gimbal is not just a sphere for the aerodynamic reasons we mentioned, it actually hides a few tricks. And the first is true vertical shooting. That's right, this gimbal can actually rotate to allow you to capture 6K vertical video with the main wide angle camera, or 4K with either of the two tele cameras. Now, you can activate this mode by tapping this icon on the screen, or if you get the combo with the new DJI RC Pro 2, which we'll also look at in detail shortly, you can actually rotate the screen on this controller into a vertical orientation, which not only lets you see a larger preview of that vertical recording, but also automatically rotates the gimbal into its vertical mode. Now, while it's great to see true vertical recording on the Mavic 4 Pro, I do have to point out it does have a limitation. You see, when the gimbal rotates, its maximum tilt angle changes to only 9 degrees up or down, which means you can't get shots above a subject looking down. In fact, you essentially have to be level with your subject if you want to get it in the frame. Even if you have the gimbal pointed down in landscape mode, when you switch to portrait mode, it will snap back up to the horizon. And so in my opinion, this does really limit when and how you can use this vertical mode quite a bit. Now, thankfully, when the gimbal is back in that horizontal mode, you get a much wider range of tilt. So alongside being able to tilt directly down 90 degrees as you would expect, we now also have a much larger upward tilt angle compared to only 35 degrees on the Mavic 3 Pro. So this could be good if you are flying underneath something and want to capture footage looking up at it. The real party trick of this gimbal, however, that you probably already are aware of, is the fact that it can be rolled 440 degrees to give you effectively a spin shot in the air. Now, there's a few ways you can do this. Firstly, you can do it manually by pressing and holding the C1 button on the back of the controller and then using the scroll wheel to turn it, although this is quite tricky to do while flying the drone at the same time. Or there's also a new quick shot mode called Rotate, which when activated will roll the gimbal while flying forward or backward automatically, which in my opinion is the best and easiest way to use this feature. But rolling the gimbal is also available when doing time lapses or even a waypoint mission. Okay, so going back to the design, and another change you might have already spotted is to the vision sensors dotted around the drone. So we have 3 new fisheye sensors on the top and bottom, and if you look even closer, you will see this small forward-facing LiDAR sensor discreetly placed on the front right arm. And while all these still offer omnidirectional obstacle avoidance, so the drone can see all around itself to avoid obstacles, there are some big improvements to enable safer flights. So firstly, thanks to these new larger, higher performing fisheye sensors, which can see with a higher resolution and better perception, the Mavic 4 can now see and detect smaller obstacles all the way down to as small as 2 centimeters in diameter. So while really fine twigs or branches or power lines are still going to be an issue, it will pick up some smaller obstacles the previous model struggled with. The improved vision sensors can also continue to offer omnidirectional obstacle avoidance down to only 0.1 lux of brightness, which is the same as flying at night with only the illumination of a full moon. And if it gets even darker, so near pitch black, the LiDAR sensor on the front kicks in to continue to offer forward-facing obstacle avoidance. This is also beneficial when return to home engages in those low light or nighttime situations, as again the drone will be able to safely detect and bypass obstacles as it returns back to you. During daytime flights, on the other hand, that LiDAR sensor still comes in useful, because as you fly around, it's continually mapping your environment, which means if return to home engages when you have weak or no satellite connection, the drone can still plan and fly an optimal and safe route back to you automatic. But we can't talk about return to home without discussing one of my favorite new features on the Mavic 4 Pro. Dynamic Homepoint. I can't believe it's taken this long to see it reappear on a DJI drone. So this does require the DJI RC Pro 2, and it's kind of hidden within this settings menu, but if you go to the update Homepoint option, you can now switch to Dynamic Homepoint. And what this means is the Homepoint location will constantly update to where the controller is at automatically. So this is perfect if you're using the drone to track yourself and you're constantly moving around, as now if you lose signal between the controller and the drone, instead of it going back to where it was originally taken off from, it's going to come back to where you are now standing with the controller. Fantastic. Now, just while we're on the subject of obstacle avoidance and return to home, this is obviously not a cheap drone. So if you are going to pick it up, I would highly advise you consider DJI Care Refresh, which is DJI's version of insurance that covers you for accidental damage that includes collisions, flyaways, and water damage. Now, I'm not ashamed to admit, I have crashed quite a few drones in my time. Accidents happen. But because I've always made sure each drone is protected with Care Refresh, when you damage a drone, it's simply a case of sending it back, paying a small additional fee, and within a few days you have a brand new one in your hands. It's a very quick and efficient process, and it has saved my skin, well, more times than I care to admit. So if you would like to find out more about it, I've also put a link to DJI Care Refresh in the description down below. So let's now look at tracking, and the Mavic 4 Pro gets the Active Track 360 system we have come to know and love from the likes of the Mini 4 Pro and Air 3S. And this is pretty much tried and tested at this stage, offering much more customizability in terms of the tracking orientation, distances such as near and far, and movement by using the trace wheel compared to the Mavic 3 Pro's more limited Active Track 5.0 system, in which you can only really control the orientation. Just be aware though that its max tracking speed is around 18 meters per second or 40 miles per hour. So if you're trying to track something really fast, it will start to get left behind. With that being said, the Mavic 4 can now recognize vehicles' direction of travel to better plan a more optimal tracking route, and it has also been upgraded to detect even smaller subjects. So for example, here you can see the Mavic 3 Pro is struggling to detect this car at around 130 meters, whereas the Mavic 4 Pro has no problems even at 200 meters distance. Pretty impressive. The only drawback to active track is that it only works with the main wide angle camera and the 2.5 times Tele Camera. Unfortunately, it's not available with the 6 times camera, although Spotlight mode does work, so you can kind of use this to still get tracking shots. Now, speaking of flying at those further distances, let's talk transmission. And the Mavic 4 Pro uses the latest AuguSync 4 Plus technology. And honestly, in my time using this drone, I have to say it's by far the most reliable connection I have ever experienced between controller and drone. It doubles the max transmission range available on the Mavic 3 Pro from 15 kilometers FCC or 8 kilometers CE to an incredible 30 kilometers FCC or 15 kilometers CE off range. It's also capable of 10-bit HDR real-time video transmission, which brings me on to controllers, and there's a lot to talk about. Now, the DJI Mavic 4 Pro is compatible with 2 controllers. The DJI RC2, which will come with either the standard drone or the Firmware combo we have discussed, and the all-new DJI RC Pro 2, which comes with the top-end creator combo or can be purchased separately. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time going into detail on this controller because, as you can see, it's quite different from anything we have seen before. Design-wise, as you can see, the RC Pro 2 has an enormous 7-inch mini LED screen, and this initially sits over the joysticks and buttons in a folded position to make it easy to transport. But when you are ready to use it, the antennas flick downwards at the back and you simply lift the screen upwards to automatically turn it on. And this not only reveals the controls, but the joysticks are also collapsible. I've been asking for this for so long. So as you lift up the screen, they automatically lift up as well. You never need to remove them, which is so good. My only slight criticism of these joysticks is that for me personally, there's not enough resistance. They're very light, so I find them quite hard to hold in a certain position for a long period of time. A controller like the DJI RC2, on the other hand, the joysticks have more resistance and I find them easier to work with, but this is definitely a personal preference thing. So looking at the screen in more detail now, and when it's opened out, it's also actually tiltable. So this is great if you're filming in the sun, as it allows you to tilt it to get the least glare. But another benefit when you are out on those brighter days is the fact this screen has a peak brightness of 2,000 nits. And that's an enormous improvement over the DJI RC2's brightness of only 700 nits and double the brightness of the older RC Pro. In bright sunny days, the DJI RC2 screen could become pretty hard to view clearly due to its lower brightness. But with this new, much brighter screen, that is not a problem. Now, as mentioned earlier, the screen also supports 10-bit color, so you get a really vibrant and color-accurate video preview. And one of its party tricks we also mentioned is that if you wish to film in vertical mode, you can just rotate the screen to make full use of the entire 7-inch display. Now, in terms of the controls, you can see these remain largely the same as other DJI controllers, with the exception of the 5D button that we previously had on the RC Pro, and this can be customized to do various things, but also this new dial. So with this new dial, when filming in Pro or manual mode, pressing the center of the dial will switch you between the shutter, aperture and ISO settings, and then rotating it allows you to make adjustments without ever having to touch the screen. A slightly surprising new feature of this controller is that it actually has a built-in microphone, allowing you to record audio when doing screen recordings. You no longer have to connect a microphone by plugging a receiver into the bottom to achieve this, which is great, although it is still possible if you wish. And there's also an HDMI port on the bottom that allows you to output the video. In terms of battery life, the controller has a runtime of around 4 hours, so that is more than enough to cover 3 full battery flights with the Mavic 4 Pro, and time to spare, to be honest. And when it comes to built-in storage, this is now being quadrupled from the RC Pro, having 128 gigabytes of storage. So what do you guys think? If you already own a Mavic 3 Pro, do you think this is enough of an upgrade to consider upgrading? For me personally, I definitely think it is. And despite all the various improvements, for me it comes down to those higher quality cameras, particularly the 6x tele, which is a good step forward, lower noise level and longer battery life, and these for me are more than worthy of the upgrade. And again, when it comes to the controllers, if you are considering picking this drone up, are you going to go with the DJI RC2 or the all-new RC Pro 2? For me, this new controller paired with the Mavic 4 Pro is just what makes the entire experience feel like a big jump forward. The larger, brighter screen, joysticks that you don't need to remove, ability to have a dynamic Homepoint are all again incredible quality of life improvements that honestly when you go back to the older model without them, you really do miss pretty quickly. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. And if you would like to find out more about the new DJI Mavic 4 Pro or pick it up, again I've put a link in the description down below where you can do just that. And while you're down there, if you've liked this video and you've learned something new, please let me know by giving me the thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you love all things drones, but also action cameras, gimbals and more, and want to know how to get more cinematic videos and better looking images with your camera gear, then I recommend you check out my channel where I have a ton of other content to help you level up your game. If you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos, then please consider clicking that subscribe button down below, and when you're down there, be sure to check the notification bell so that you will be alerted when my new videos are released. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to stick around and watch a few more now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.